So this is the library's class on buying a device. And we do this about once a year. We generally do it before Black Friday because oftentimes people are thinking of buying devices around the holidays. It's also a nice time because mainly because the newest iPhone has been released, some new Android phones have been released, and all the retailers are trying to end up in the black for the year. So sales happen, deals happen, and it's a decent time to buy anything you've been looking at. As always, if we have your email address, you'll get a copy of the slides and you'll get a copy of the presentation. One of the reasons why it's nice to have a copy of the slides is if anyone has any questions or if any links are discussed, the slides will get updated and then you'll be able to see going forward updated versions of the slides. So whenever we run this class next year, for example, we'll use the same slides, we'll just update them. So even if you don't take the class, you can always look at the slides and get updated information. So today's going to be slightly shorter class. We leave a little bit extra time for questions and answers because everyone has specific questions and everyone has specific needs. But we generally will talk about computers, tablets, phones, printers, and routers. Those are the main things that people come in asking questions about on Wednesdays, which is Tech Drop-In. And we have a slide at the end to kind of help explain how you can have a better time if you come to a drop-in looking to buy a new device. You know, kind of some things you should think about just to make the process go smoothly. If you don't want to think too much, Chromebooks are able to do 95% of what people need computers for. Chromebooks are easier to use purely because they are more limited. You basically just have access to a web browser. Things like Word and Excel, you can now use them in the web browser. So that's a major limitation that Chromebooks used to have. That major limitation is gone. Chromebooks are a little bit more secure because they do a fresh wipe on every boot, and they're generally cheaper and they generally last a little bit longer because they are less hardware dependent. So first section is computers. This is just I went to a site, found some aggregated ratings of what people had good experience with. This isn't necessarily my order, but I also realize that I'm biased. So by ratings, Lenovo, Dell, HP, Apple, Acer/Asus, and Microsoft are all pretty good options for buying computers. One of the main reasons why these generally will have higher ratings is their support exists. I'm not saying their support is great, but you can get support for your computer after you've purchased it. One of the things I like to mention is I oftentimes find it advantageous to buy things from a location that has a brick and mortar store. What I mean by this is you can buy Lenovo, Dell, HP, Apple. You can buy these computers at a store like Best Buy or Costco. And then if you have an issue with the laptop or desktop, you can then bring it to a physical location to get help. So if something breaks, something of that nature, you're able to go in person to get some support. Whereas with, if you buy something online, oftentimes the process is going to be send it to a service center for 2 to 3 weeks, and then you get the computer back a week later. So that would leave you without a computer for almost a full month. Also of note is Apple is rated as having the best support experience, and Dell is rated as having the second best support experience. So what this means is if you have an issue with the computer, how positive is your experience with getting that issue resolved? One of the reason Apple has the best support experience is because they have the Apple Store, which in our region, I believe the closest one would be in Nashua, but that would allow you to take an Apple computer that you've bought, go to the store, and get them to look at it. And you know that the person at the Apple Store is familiar with your Apple computer, whereas if you go to Best Buy, the person is probably able to look at any Windows computer, but it won't be as specific an experience. Whenever you're thinking about buying a computer, the first thing to think about is the format, laptop versus desktop, right? So if you are oftentimes moving your computer from room to room, or you're taking it with you when you go on trips, then a laptop makes the most sense. If the only time you use a computer is at a specific location, then oftentimes a desktop will make sense. The reason why you would buy a desktop in general is just because they generally last longer, they're a little bit faster, and they're a little bit cheaper. The other reason is because your screen size is not limited to the laptop screen. So you can buy as big a screen as you need in order to make it more readable for you. With a laptop, I often tell people if they have a specific place in their house that they generally use their laptop, you can also buy a screen for your laptop. So when you're at that desk area, you can plug it into the screen, and all of a sudden your 15-inch laptop screen now doesn't matter as much because you have a nice 30-inch screen that you're working off of, so it's easier to see and read text. The next question is, who uses the computer? Where is the computer? Price of computer? And do I want a Mac? So we kind of went over all of that. But the main problem or main question is, do you want a Chromebook? Do you want a Windows computer? Or do you want a Macintosh? People ask often if they should switch. And my answer is generally that you shouldn't feel a need to switch brands. If you are familiar with, for example, a Windows computer and you've been using a Windows computer for over a decade, while a Mac or a Chromebook um, are very similar and you'll be able to figure it out, you also can just alleviate that headache of not immediately knowing where everything is or how it works by sticking to the ecosystem you're used to. But if you actively want to switch, then feel free to go from a Windows to a Mac or a Mac to a Chromebook, anything you want. And I can definitely talk you through that process if needed. Biggest thing is screen size. So if you are buying a laptop specifically, one of the most important things to consider when buying a laptop is the screen size. You don't want to buy a laptop that has an 11-inch screen, for example, because it's a great deal if you are not going to enjoy the process of using a computer with an 11-inch screen. On the flip side, you also probably shouldn't buy like an 18 or 19-inch laptop if you plan on carrying it around with you, because then all of a sudden your laptop is absolutely massive, very heavy, will have a very heavy power brick, and you probably won't want to take it places just because of how cumbersome and how annoying the process is. The other consideration, of course, is if you have trouble seeing words, or if you're doing something specific, like if you're editing videos, you'll generally want a larger screen. And one of the things, and I brought this up before, is no matter what, you can always buy an external monitor for a laptop. If you want the portability of a laptop, say get like a 14 or a 15-inch laptop, you can always get a 27 or 30-inch screen in order to let you have that big piece of real estate to look at when you're using the computer. This is just some terminology. So CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. This is often considered the brain of a computer. One of the important things to look at when buying a computer is that you are buying a relatively new computer. If you're paying new price, you might as well be getting a new device. And specifically for Intel, you'll often see their uh, their CPUs will also have a letter attached. The reason why this matters is you can have two computers with the same processor, but a different letter, and they will perform very differently. So if you are going with a laptop and you want that laptop to be as fast as possible, you would want an H processor for high performance. Consequently, or alternatively, if you were buying a laptop and you wanted it to last all day, you only wanted to plug it in at night and then you wanted to use it without a power cord, you would either want a Y or a U processor, which are the ones that, aren't as fast, but they have very low power consumption, so the battery on your laptop will last a lot longer. Currently, the current generation of CPUs are either for AMD, it's the Ryzen 9000 series, and the Intel Core Ultra 200 series. All this means is the first number of the CPU for a AMD computer should be 9, and the first number for an Intel CPU should be a 2. It just means it's the current generation. RAM is the next thing to think about when buying a computer. It stands for random access memory. Basically, it's how much information the computer can store at a time in a very fast filing cabinet. So if you have a big filing cabinet, it can store a lot of information. If you don't have that much RAM, it will constantly be taking files in and out of that filing cabinet, which takes a lot of time. So more RAM equals your computer is able to handle more information at once. Storage, this is less of an issue these days. Uh, in almost every single scenario I can possibly think of, you will want to make sure that your computer has a solid state drive. That is often shortened to SSD. The benefits of a solid state drive is they don't produce vibration, if that matters. They they are much lighter and they are much faster. The only reason to really stick with a hard drive or an HDD is for the amount of space you can get. They are much cheaper. This is just an example specification. If you were to look to buy a laptop or desktop today, um, just to give you a good starting point. So AMD Ryzen 7 9700X. So you can see that the AMD, the number of the processor, the 9700X, starts with a 9. That means it's the current generation. Or Intel, a comparable Intel, is the Ultra 7 265K. And once again, you can see the 265K. That number begins with a 2, which means it's the current generation. RAM, I don't like to think about it that much, so I like to oversize RAM just so it does. So if you're keeping a computer for a couple of years, you don't need to think about it. So I always recommend, right now, I recommend 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is fairly standard. If you see a computer that matches your specifications in every other way, but it only has 16 gigabytes of RAM, that is perfectly fine. I just took that 16 and doubled it just because I don't like thinking that much. Solid state, these days you want a fairly sizable drive. I would not buy anything under 512 gigabytes. In general, I would recommend, if it's an option, to just get a 1 terabyte drive or bigger. Once again, just so you don't have to think about it. But 512 would be my lowest recommended size. If you are buying a computer, oftentimes you'll find a couple different types or styles. There will be the consumer computers, which are oftentimes going to be 10 to 15% cheaper. Then you will find gaming, which are, bright and shiny. And you will also be able to see enterprise or business. If someone just wants their computer, wants it to work, doesn't want to think too much, I always recommend, if monetarily you can, to buy the enterprise or business model. These are generally built a little bit better, but they are slightly more expensive than their consumer counterparts. On this page, I have two links. The first link is to slickdeals.net. That .net is very important, and we can go over what slickdeals.net is at the end when we have time. And then I also have a link to the New York Times, their Wirecutter page. Oftentimes, if I'm looking for a quick recommendation for somebody, I will just search best laptop Wirecutter, and I will find the Wirecutter article that has tried and tested probably 10 computers and given 3 recommendations. The same thing works for printers. The same thing works for routers. Most technology things that you'd be looking for, Wirecutter will have a pretty good article on. And the reason why I like Wirecutter is they will update them as after every couple months. So, whenever you're looking at, what's the best Chromebook for 2025, that Wirecutter article is from October. So it's fairly recent. Tablets. Tablets are more in use these days than they were in years past. Some people view them as a laptop replacement. Uh, I personally think a laptop is a laptop and a tablet is a tablet. But if all you want to do is use social media, go online, maybe do some banking, you can use, the Chase app or the Fidelity app, then tablets are perfectly acceptable. Generally, you can view tablets as just super big phones. You will generally find them in, anywhere from 10 to 13 inches is a pretty generic size for a tablet. So they'll be slightly smaller than your average laptop, but they will be much more readable than a phone. The big players in this space are the iPad. There's also Android tablets and Windows tablets. iPads will run the same operating system that your iPhone runs. If you are already familiar with an iPhone, I would generally recommend an iPad. If you are using an Android phone, I would recommend Android tablets. Samsung makes some really good ones. And if you are getting a Windows tablet, you are essentially buying a Windows computer that just doesn't come with a keyboard. Phones. Are there any questions on tablets or computers before I go to phones? Yep.
Sure, we're gonna look here. I just have a quick question. You were talking about the current processors, and I was just looking at an HP computer, mostly because of the price. Can I just read you what it says? I'm not sure if it has this two number that you were talking about.
Yeah.
This is HP OmniDesk M02/0055T PC. Windows 11 Home, Intel Core TM, 16 gigabytes, 512 GB SSD. Is there a 2 there, or is this not the current generation?
I didn't actually see, or I guess more accurately, I didn't hear the processor. At the
Intel.
end though, at the end, if you give me the model number of the computer, we can look at it together.
Okay, great.
Tim, I have a question.
Yep.
How long can you expect a tablet to last?
Roughly 3 to 7 years.
Okay.
I think I have a slide at the end that has like quick, glance, how long should things last? But tablets, I put them in the same category as phones. So generally they will get security updates for 3 to 7 years.
And what about Kindles? Same thing? I mean, how long should they
Oh,
last?
Kindle lasts until you want a new Kindle. So until your current Kindle breaks, the main reason I would recommend getting a new Kindle is if you don't have a Paperwhite. The Paperwhite screen is just, at least to me, much better than non-Paperwhite screens. But as long as you have that, there isn't a massive reason to upgrade unless you have an issue with your current Kindle.
Yeah, I have an issue. It won't accept a charge anymore.
Yep, then definitely Black Friday or Amazon Prime days, Kindle Paperwhite would be my recommendation for that.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right, phones. Um, Once again, very similar to the Windows versus Mac debate. If you're used to Android, I generally recommend to just stick with Android. If you're used to iPhone, I recommend you stick with iPhone. Um, so mainly the question is, how much do I want to spend? Right? Um, Phones come in all shapes and sizes. One of the things I think about when buying a new phone is the current generation is more expensive than the previous generation. But if I buy the current generation, I'm going to get one more year of use out of it compared to buying a previous generation. So if the number you're hoping to hit doesn't allow you to buy the current generation, just realize that you're essentially paying less, but also getting less time with that device, if that makes sense. So, for example, an iPhone will generally last and get security updates for about 6 years. Let's say a new iPhone is $1,000. Well, if you buy $1,000 iPhone, you are going to get 6 years out of it. If you spend $100 less and get the previous generation, you're only spending $900, but you're only getting 5 years. So it's just a question of, how much is that 1 year worth to you? Here I have some current pricing that is non-discounted, just to show you what some of the new phones are costing. The big boys are the iPhone 17 Pro, and in my opinion, the Pixel 10 Pro, and both of those are $1,000 plus. If you are looking to buy a phone that is cheaper, uh, the iPhones have what they call the E line, which is the previous generation, but a little bit cheaper. Generally, with the E line, you are looking at a slightly worse camera, if that matters to you, but they will oftentimes bump up the battery life a little bit so that it will last a little bit longer. In this case, top of the line iPhone 17 Pro is $1,100. A 1 year old, so you would get a 1 year less of service from the iPhone 16e, but it only costs $600. So that's a pretty big price difference if all you're worried about is having a phone that works. Where you would buy the 17 Pro is if you want to have the better camera, better battery life, better build quality, better screen, but it comes at a premium of, $500. So you're essentially saving $500 for one less year of service. The Pixel line has a very similar product process. The Pixel 9a, once again, will last about 1 year less than the current generation, but only costs $500. You can find, if you are already a part of, AT&T or T-Mobile or Verizon, oftentimes they will give you a discount or just a new phone for quote unquote free. The cost is essentially they lock you into another 2 or 3 years of service with them. So if you don't want to spend money on the phone, but you're totally happy with your current Verizon experience, which is, what I use, then you can get that free phone, and you just are saying, I will I will pay Verizon my monthly bill for another 3 or 4 years, or 2 or 3 or 4 years. That being said, if you just buy it unlocked, you can get a Pixel 9a for $499. So that's $500. Around the holidays, you can sometimes find just a straight discount of, $100 or $200 on these phones, which make them even more affordable. One of the things I try to dissuade people from is going much lower than this for their phone, mainly because not every manufacturer will offer the same level of security updates. So for the same number of years. One of the reasons why iPhones are kind of nice is because as soon as you buy them, you're getting at least 6 years of security updates. And if you buy a higher end phone like the Pixel line or the Samsung line, you're generally getting 4 to 6 years of updates on those. And once a phone stops getting security updates, just like how Windows 10 stopped getting security updates this October, once it stops getting security updates, in my opinion, it's time to get a new device just so you're less susceptible to online threats. And this kind of simply writes out or is written out what I just said. Top of the line phones are the best. You're looking at spending about $1,000. Main reason why I buy top of the line phones, right, are because I like taking photos with my phone. And it's worth it to me. The increased price is worth the better phone picture quality. On here, I have links to both the Apple Store and the Google Store for the phones that I referenced on this slide, if you wanted to look at them yourself. Do we have any questions on phones?
When you say that 6 years, I have an iPhone 8. My phone, they do update it, but there was a problem last time. Is that the phone lasts only 6 years, or you're only getting 6 years of updates?
6 years of security updates.
Uh-huh.
So basically, the phone can last longer, and there's nothing wrong inherently with using a phone after it gets or is unable to get security updates. It just means any malware that is written after that last security update, you're not going to be able to protect against it.
And security updates are different than operating system updates. Is that correct?
Yes. Generally, the way to think about it is if you are still getting operating system updates, you are still getting security updates. If you, for example, let's see what iPhone is up to now. iPhone is, this is recorded, so I don't want to lie too much. So I'm just gonna, all right, so on my phone right now, I'm iOS version 18.6.2. Let's say you look at your phone and you're on iOS 17 point something point something. What that means is you're probably not getting security updates that came with version 18. So that's an easy way. The other way that I like to check is you just take your model name of your phone, so iPhone 8, and you just search iPhone 8 security update. And generally there will be an article going over when you can expect the last security update to be.
Oh, see, mine is 16 points. Okay.
Yep. So it's probably not receiving security updates anymore.
And
No, it works just fine.
Yep. The other reason why I upgrade phones, so one, security updates. Two, I will upgrade my phone if I want a better camera. Three, I will upgrade my phone if I want more storage. And four, I will upgrade my phone if I start to have battery issues. The worst battery issue I've currently experienced was my phone would charge normally. It would survive the day, and it would end the day at like, let's say I would get home from work and my battery would be at 50%, you know. So theoretically, that means I should be good. But whenever my phone would hit battery life at about 30%, it would immediately shut off. The reason why I didn't like that was I could imagine a scenario where I was relying on my phone for directions or something. And I didn't want to think about, is my phone going to shut off today at 40%? Is my phone going to shut off today at 35%? Just that uncertainty made me upgrade or buy a new phone. So battery, camera, storage, or security updates. All right, device longevity. Uh, all of these numbers are conservative, in my opinion, as long as your device is getting security updates and you are happy with it, you do not need to buy a new one. You should, however, with these numbers, start to plan for a new one because there's nothing worse than losing a phone or a computer and immediately think to yourself, crap, I need to spend, let's just say $1,000 and I haven't budgeted for that. So this is more of a guideline to be aware of. Laptops, I generally say, depending on the quality of the laptop you buy, you should expect a good 3 to 7 years of use out of it. Chromebooks, 3 to 7 years. Desktops, a little bit longer, 4 to 10 years. And phones, purely based on security updates, anywhere from 4 to 6 years. Printers. Some people love printers. Most people hate printers, but some people still need them. Ink type is a big thing I talk about whenever people are looking for recommendations for printers. There is ink and there is toner. You would get an ink printer if you wanted to print color things. So if you wanted to print pictures, for example, if you wanted to print out photos, ink is going to be 90% of the time better than getting a toner printer. You can also put, your nice glossy paper through and get kind of professional-ish results with a good inkjet printer. If you don't care about printing photos, I highly recommend toner. Toner is just all around, in my opinion, more reliable. Toner can't dry out is a main thing. Yeah, not much more to it. Toner, you can get a black and white printer that is just a toner printer that is just black and white, but you can also pay more money and get a toner printer that is color. It's just not going to have as good quality of pictures as an inkjet. Over the life of the unit, in my opinion, toner is a little bit cheaper than inkjet, just because of the higher capacity of the toner than of the ink. Oftentimes you'll find yourself having to replace the ink more often than toner for the same number of pages being printed, for example. For me personally, I generally stick with Brother or HP. If I am looking for a toner printer that is just black and white, I go Brother every single time. If I am looking for an inkjet or something that'll print in color, that's when HP comes into the equation. Any questions on printers? Cool. All right. Routers. So sometimes people come in on Wednesdays and ask how can their internet at their house be better? Unless you are still using dial-up, which really doesn't really exist anymore, or DSL, the next best thing you're going to get is a better router. So what this means is the router is the device that will send the wireless signal to all of your other devices in your house. If you have a good router, that range of Wi-Fi will get better. And if you have a bad router, that range of Wi-Fi isn't going to be that great. So if you have certain spots in your house where you're like, oh, I don't get good signal here, versus, oh, if I go to the kitchen table, I get great signal, that's when a router can help. Or a better router. The main questions to ask are how big is my house? How many people connect at the same time? What am I doing on the internet? Are my neighbors shady? And what am I willing to pay? Routers can be anywhere from under $100 to a couple of $100. So it's a pretty big price difference. The reason why you care about how big your house is because if you have a larger house or a multi-story house, you would want a router that can be strong enough to go through walls and ceilings and also just spread out and cover a large area. If you have a small house, this is less of a concern. If you have a house that has a lot of people in it or a lot of devices, you will want to make sure you get a router that is capable of handling that many devices at one time. And then the question of what do I do on the internet? If you are streaming Netflix to 4 TVs at a time, you will need a router that is able to handle sending that amount of information to that amount of devices. The reason why I ask if your neighbors are being shady is just security. If you buy the right router, it will be more secure than a router that is generally less expensive. So if you live in an area where a lot of people live close together, then oftentimes you'll probably want a little bit better of a router just so you make sure that no one else is able to get on it and use it without your permission. Here are some brands for routers. There really are a lot of options. Asus, Netgear, D-Link, Synology. Google has a Wi-Fi router, Netgear, Eero, and Unify. If you notice to the right of some of these, I have mesh written. So if you have a mesh system, what this means is you can have a router placed anywhere in your house. You can then take another router, plug it into the wall, and it will connect to the first router and rebroadcast that signal. The reason why this is nice is it means you don't need to run cables everywhere, and you can expand your Wi-Fi coverage pretty easily. You just have to buy the additional device. So the Google Wi-Fi Pro, the Netgear Orbi, and the Eero 7 are all mesh-capable systems that are pretty good. The reason why that last one is on the list, Unify, is the one I generally recommend and I build out for people. It is a little more complicated to use, but I find it to be pretty reliable. And once people have it set up, it's, in my opinion, pretty nice. But there are a lot more options as seen on this list. What I use is Unify. The other reason I like Unify is I can generate a Wi-Fi heat map, which basically means I can upload a PDF or an image of a house or business. I can then place a router or a Wi-Fi unit, and it will tell me based on this floor plan I upload, it will tell me where the wireless will be good and where the wireless will be bad in the house or business. And then I can add another unit and I can see how that will change the Wi-Fi signal strength for the house. But it's just nice for pre-planning. Mostly people find that useful if they are renovating a space or if they are doing a new build, so they're building a new house. But wait, there's more. Before we get to But Wait, There's More by Billy Mays, does anyone have any questions on routers?
Nope, doesn't look it.
I
Cool.
have a question. Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
How can you be sure that someone else in your neighborhood can't get on your router?
So, great question. The first thing I generally do is I would log into the router and it will tell you a list of devices that are connected. It will also be able to tell you a list of historical devices. If, for example, you own one iPhone, the people in your house own 2 additional iPhones, you go into your router and you see 30 iPhones connected, you know someone else is using your internet. So that's the first thing I would do. But in order to prevent that, generally what you do is you just make sure that you are using the latest encryption for your wireless network. Right now, I think it's WPA3. And then you do a password that is fairly good, so isn't easily guessable. And then you should be reasonably secure that other people aren't accessing your router or your wireless network. If you have an older router, sometimes it'll be using an older version of encryption. Generally, new versions of encryption come out whenever it's easy to crack the old version, which is why it's generally recommended to have a newer, make sure you're on the latest encryption.
I don't even know how to log into my router. How would I do that?
Yep, so sometimes it'll be written on the router what the IP address is, but you'll generally go to a browser like Google Chrome, and you would go to 192.168.1.1. That's oftentimes a default. If it is not that, what you can do is you can type in the model of your router into Google, and you can ask it what is the default address for it, and then you will use whatever that number is. Generally, it'll be a 192.168.something.1 as the default address. If your next question is how do I log into it, generally that information is written on the router itself if you have not changed it already as part of the setup process.
And how often do routers usually last before they become outdated in terms of security?
Yep, I generally don't think about them for about a decade.
Okay. I had one other question about printers, if you don't mind.
Yep.
I know that HP has printers that require you to buy the ink from Hewlett Packard.
Yep.
And I think they were sued.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so would you recommend, I know you like HP printers, but would you recommend buying other printers so you won't get stuck buying HP ink?
That is one of the major reasons I highly like Brother printers. Because you don't currently you don't get locked in like that, like Epson and HP are doing with their printers.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so here's the But Wait, There's More page. If you have a specific question throughout the year, we're able to help you specifically. So for example, if you wanted to get advice on a new computer you're looking at purchasing, you will want to know what type of computer you want. So basically laptop, desktop, or the size of the laptop. So Do you want a 14-inch laptop? Do you want a 17-inch laptop? That kind of thing. What are you going to use it for? This is useful to know how powerful the machine should be. And then what your budget is. The reason why we ask for the budget, or why I personally ask for the budget, is I'm not, selling a car. We're not making money. You're not buying anything through us. We just find that information useful so that we can set expectations, right? If I don't want a scenario in which someone asks for a computer recommendation, and then we come back with, 3 computers that we think might fit, and then later we realize that the budget is a couple $100s lower, because then we would change the expectations we have of the computer we're looking at, based on the price. So if someone's budget for a laptop is $800, that means we won't recommend a laptop that's over $1,000, for example. And this is the same for any non-computer devices. If you're looking for a recommendation on a printer, it would be, do you want to print color? Do you want it to be able to print wirelessly? Just some of those, how would you use the device questions. If you need any, help even coming up with the answers to the questions, as always, we have the Wednesday tech drop-ins where we, have time set aside where we can help answer any of those questions and help you get a device that hopefully you'll be able to use for many years happily. Are there any questions before we go into kind of showing some of the links that we had talked about?
What time is the Wednesday tech drop-in?
That is noon to 1 on most Wednesdays. So for example, if I think this year, Thanksgiving and Christmas, those weeks, we don't have drop-in.
And obvious times you wouldn't have them.
Yeah, and it's always on the website. So you can look on the website. I think last year, I think I had to cancel 2 or 3 throughout the year, either sick or something came up kind of thing. But it's generally pretty reliable Wednesday at 12 to 1. One important thing to note of the drop-ins is I try to schedule my time so that I'm able to stay after 1, but we don't let anyone sign up after 1. So for example, if there's 5 people who come in and the 4th person, I finish helping them at 1:15, as long as the 5th person is able to stay, I try and make sure that I have time to help everyone I can. All right, so we still able to see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so here's Slick Deals. I like to show this as a way to kind of find a computer or phone. What's nice about it is it has this search bar up at the top. Search, deals, coupons, stores, and more. So if I was looking for a new phone, I could type in iPhone and search. And I will find results. So how do I read the results? I scroll down. Right here, this first one, 128 gigabyte straight talk Apple iPhone 16e locked. What this means is it will only work on straight talk. It is 28% off, so it is $254, and there are a lot of thumbs. So the way to read these things is rating. This is the important one. Plus 70 is good. Plus 136 is good. Plus 3, not very many people care about it. So the more pluses is the better people view this deal. The next thing is the number of thumbs, which is generally related to the pluses. If it has 5 thumbs, this means it's probably a good deal. The next thing is activity. I will try and actually make this a little bit bigger. All right, activity. So we see this 349. That means 349 people have made a comment about this deal. The reason why that's nice is you get to see the result of people asking questions and arguing with each other in the comments. So if I click on it and I scroll down a little bit, I can see people talking. So how long do you need to keep the plan and when does it unlock? 60 days. It'll just ask questions and people answer. Both months needed to be gold or platinum plan. No, you can downgrade after the first month. I'm not familiar with Straight Talk, so I don't really know what that means. But this is just an example of how to read slick deals. The next thing is laptops and computers. There is a option at the top that's just a quick search. And any laptop or computer deal will be here. So the first thing I see is a 14-inch Apple MacBook Air from 2025. I'll click on it. So 2025, that means it's a current model. M4 chip verifies it's a current model, blah, blah, blah. It is 24% off, and the deal is at Amazon. So if I scroll down a little bit, I can see a list of available configurations for this. So they still have a deal if you want a higher end model. And I'll keep scrolling down, and people are talking about the deal, if it's good or not. Apparently, if you are a member of the military, there is a better deal coming. So the reason why this is nice is you can kind of see other people's opinions on if the deal is a good one. And you can search specifically, you can search generically. If I was looking for a Dell laptop, I could search Dell laptop. And I could see what deals are currently existing for Dell laptops. You can see less people are excited about these than the Mac deal, but still, if I was looking for a computer for $520, I can see this isn't unpopular, but it's still 35% off. I can see that the first number is a 7, so that's one generation back. From 2023, maybe I'll skip it. But the big thing with slick deals is the comments and the thumbs. So I can see this one, if I scroll a little bit lower, has 5 thumbs, 32, 9 comments, and is for a Costco member Dell laptop 16-inch laptop. So I can scroll down and I can see people talking about the deal, if they think it's good or not. So one of the things you can do is if you find something that sounds good, you can always take the link. You can come into Tech Drop-In and you can double check to see if it makes sense for you. But Costco is pretty good about, or not Costco, Slick Deals is pretty good if you are willing to search for a little bit. The other link I had talked about was Wirecutter. So this is just an example. If I was looking for a Chromebook, I would just search Wirecutter Best Chromebook. First result, the 4 best Chromebooks of 2025. I would scroll down and I would see what they recommend. So they recommend the best Chromebook is the Acer, the best 2-in-1, so that means it can fold, the best on a budget, is this one. And I can see the pricing on all of these. So I can see this one is basically the same price, but they say this one's the best Chromebook. I want to see what it is. I can click on the Amazon link. And this is the store page. If I scroll down more on the Wirecutter page, they will explain why they like it. And then they will go through the other options that they recommend. So I like Wirecutter mainly because it's very easily digestible, and they give, you know, some rationale as to why you would pick this over a different computer. I think someone had a question earlier about a HP. I think the reason why I didn't recognize the model is it's one of their lower end cores, lower end Intel cores, which are more for low powered machines and aren't their main line of the Ultra line. But for example, if I was interested in buying this Chromebook, I can see it is this one. Click on it, open it. Acer Chromebook Plus 514. I can then go to Slick Deals and I can paste the model and see if there are any deals on this Chromebook. So I can see that it is expired on the left-hand side. It shows as expired, but there was a deal on this Chromebook for $265 instead of $365. So if I was looking for a Chromebook whenever this deal was active, I would go to Wirecutter, get a recommendation. I would go to Slick Deals, type in the model number, search for it, and realize that I can get it for $100 off at Costco. I realize I just kind of went through that process fairly quickly, but definitely feel free to kind of rewind and watch this later. Or you can always come to drop in and we can go over the process as well.
I have a question.
Yep.
When you were showing us the phones and there was the word locked, what did that mean?
It just means it's carrier locked. So you can't like get a deal on a phone from like Verizon and then immediately take the phone to AT&T.
Oh,
So
in other words,
you stick it's locking you into the provider that you got the
Okay.
phone from.
I see. Thank you.
And if you also remember on that page, people were referencing that you just needed to be with Straight Talk for 2 months before the phone would unlock.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I asked you about the HP, but so if I'm looking at it, where would I see what generation, or you said the number 2 generations of the CPU, where would I see that number? Could you show me an
So
example?
yeah, so if I just search, we'll just search HP laptop,
Desktop.
It's a desktop.
desktop.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's go with one that is, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, we'll go with this one. Um, So HP Omen, uh, gaming desktops are often referenced in liters for how big they are. But here I see Intel Ultra 7 265K.
Okay.
So it would be, there would be like Intel, and then there should be a number.
So the 265, the 2 is telling you that it's the current generation? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yep. And also the current is the Ultra. There is also like a low powered line that isn't the Ultra, which I think is what that desktop might be referencing if we don't see this sort of terminology, the Ultra 7, blah, blah, blah.
So an Intel Core TM is an old processor.
What is it?
Intel Core TM, the small TM.
So it should still have some numbers afterwards. Like for example, this one's 155. And that's perfectly fine. It's just one year older.
And maybe I missed the numbers. I didn't, okay. But
Yep.
that's where I find it. That's great. Thanks.
Yep. And if you wanted to search kind of the pertinent question, is you would type that in and you would just search for release date. So you can see it was released December 14th, 2023. So basically it's a year old or 2 years old almost, which is weirdly enough just one generation. But there's nothing wrong with that, especially for a desktop, because desktops, again, on the one slide I had, are roughly 10 years.
Yeah, so I don't do anything super fancy, but yeah, this is good to know. I didn't even know.
Yep. Yeah, the main thing is you kind of just don't want to look at a computer, get excited about it, buy it, and realize you bought a computer brand new that has kind of been sitting around for 3-4 years. You know, it's like a used car salesman thing where they cleaned up the car really nice, you know.
I didn't even know they did that.
Yeah. As always, I'm definitely available for questions for another couple minutes, but I also oftentimes find myself, I have the best questions right after I leave the place where I was supposed to ask the questions. If that happens, we definitely have the tech drop in, and you can also email Rebecca, not myself, uh, and we'll get back to you as soon as I'm able, or as soon as Rebecca, knows way more than she lets on. 90% of the questions people ask, Rebecca will be able to answer anyway.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim. This was wonderful. I learned a
Yeah.
lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tim.
Bye.